welcome William Bendix.
Nobody can act up to par with a nasty cold. I check my cold distress the fast way, with 4-way cold tablets.
Yes, tests of 4 leading cold tablets proved 4-way fastest acting of all. Amazing 4-way starts in minutes to relieve aches, pains, headache, reduce fever, calm upset stomach, also overcomes irregularity.
4-way is the fast way to relieve those cold miseries. Then you feel better quickly.
4-way cold tablets, only 29 cents.
And now, an educational broadcast for members of the Society of Virtuous Pagans, part of the continuing education program provided for all members of the Society, presented by the Chief Archivist, SM-189.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am SM-189, Chief Archivist here at the Society of Virtuous Pagans. I am based in Sanctum Zero. Tonight, I would like to spend a little bit of time regarding a subject about which I have received a very large number of queries, the Nagoya mimetic. So, tonight, let us discuss this briefly. For many of you, of course, this may be old hat, but by judging by the large number of questions I received this last month regarding the very subject, we decided, the narrator and I, that perhaps it should be discussed here. So, here I am. And I hope you learned something interesting from it. To me, this is a very interesting subject, as its very nature means that most of us who would listen to the broadcast without proper preparation will have a very hard time believing what it is I'm going to tell you. And this is by design. Nevertheless, it is a question that needs to be answered, and tonight we shall do just that. Perhaps upon future preparation for engaging with such a topic, you will listen again, and perhaps you will come to a different conclusion? Let us see. So, the Society classifies the Nagoya mimetic as CU 319, Curiosity 319. The current policies of our organizations require that the minimum of 6 copies of Curiosity 319 be maintained in various forms of media at any time without express direction of the director. Upon approval of the advanced levels of security clearance within the Society, all appropriate individuals are exposed to a certain board. This too is a requirement for any individual, excepting EN055s and EN011s, who has a need for immunity to the effects of the Nagoya mimetic. 55s and 11s are naturally immune and require no such ward to provide that immunity. As such, to do so would be rather like bandaging an arm that has already been bandaged. You're only adding heat and discomfort without any real effect when you do that, aren't you? The same effect, in essence, applies here. In April of 1936, the director initiated the Caporetto Directive. While the Caporetto Directive is a subject for another day, one of the lasting effects of the aforementioned directive was the requirement that information regarding the Nagoya mimetic be widely distributed and prioritized for education. The 20th century has proven the essential necessity of such a thing, even if many of us, myself included, objected to its widespread use. This is why almost every broadcast has ended with discussion of the Nagoya mimetic, and this is why it is also my duty to share what I can. Now, I must remind you that the Society believes that the collection, proliferation, and elucidation of information to the most honest degree possible is necessary for the survival of civilization on our planet. The sad truth is that some truths simply cannot be shared. An old colleague would have had it that truth can be dangerous, and while I take his meaning, I would prefer to put it in this manner. The truth itself is not dangerous, but that the lack of the cognitive ability to process that truth is the real danger. Let us take the case of my little great-granddaughter. She is brilliant, though no more than a slip of a thing and barely able to stand to the height of my knee. She has expressed, since her first words, the capacity to speak intelligibly about the desire to become a physician. Her parents are not physicians. Her grandparents were not physicians, and I am not a physician. But the child is a marvel. She has that most rare quality amongst the young. Indeed, amongst most sapient beings of any age. She has no fear of the doctor. She's fascinated by her, and she's constantly finding new and interesting ways to excuse her visiting the doctor who attends her. Now, last summer, a friend in my little great-granddaughter's day school program was unable to attend due to illness. Where was Joshua, her stalwart friend? She demanded of the teacher. He was sick, was he? The teacher was unsure how to answer that question, but the nurse that attends to the needs of the students in that wonderful program, being herself barraged with the same question, chose to answer truthfully. Your friends accidentally swallowed something that made it difficult for him to breathe, she said. The doctors did a special procedure called a tracheotomy, and in time he will recover and he will be as good as new, though his throat may be a bit sore. And wouldn't you know it, valiant little Josephine, the heart of my heart, wanted very much to know just what a tracheotomy was. Now, Dr. Scott, the doctor to which my little sweetheart is always finding an excuse to visit, she received a very strange phone call, a very curious one indeed, from a little girl who wanted to know what a tracheotomy was. Dr. Scott thought it through carefully, and with the permission of my grandson, her father, explained the concept of a tracheotomy to my own great-granddaughter. She stomached it admirably. No worries, no troubles. Because she is not a doctor, she at least understood that she should not attempt such a procedure on any living being. Her curiosity, of course, got a hold of her, as it often does with big brains and active imaginations. As such, my grandson soon found his little girl patiently repairing a hole that had been carefully inscribed upon the neck of a great mock horse upon wooden rockers. It was a toy I used, a toy my children used, a toy that he used, and that she now uses. She had cut a square near the base of the neck with a little toothpick, and was then patching it up with a sewing kit. No permanent damage done. So my grandson asked her why she'd done it, and she told him because she knew that it was the proper way to treat a patient with an obstructed airway. Why the horse? Mr. Horse was an old fellow with a good tolerance for pain, and he had volunteered. What a fine fellow. Perhaps telling my great-granddaughter about the procedure for a proper tracheotomy was a good choice from an educational point of view, but perhaps it was not a good choice from the standpoint of simple practicality. Children do replicate what they are told. They model behavior. Adults, sadly, are very similar. Few are willing to stop at toys. Truth, if not given proper context, can lead to amateur tracheotomies. It can lead to injuries just as bad. It can lead to madness. It can lead to harmful political philosophies. 1 year in Prague, learning the truth of local corruption led to a defenestration. And that defenestration led to the death of 50% of the population of 17th century Germany. It is best not to imagine what learning some of the things we must learn as part of the society might do when in the wrong hands or presented without appropriate context. In the first 2 centuries of the society's existence, the guarded dissemination of truth was enough. Those who should not know such things were not exposed to them. Those who might harm with or be harmed by such truths could generally be shielded from them, or at least that was the idea. We have never been perfectly successful in all our endeavors. As the complexity of modern life on Earth has grown, so too has the need for the society. That requires a safer, cleaner, more efficient means of sharing vital information. It is further no great mystery that certain individuals and groups around the world want very much to disrupt our operations, to take advantage of our desire to deal as honestly as possible with the duties we have undertaken, and to exploit us as weakness, that which will only advance their own less than ideal agendas. One of the best means to communicate vital information to the society is to use the most modern forms of communication possible. While the physical archives are and must remain a primary bastion of knowledge, it is neither practical nor realistic to expect to be able to transmit those physical resources across the globe with any degree of success, nor indeed would it be the most ethically responsible choice. The Nagoya Memetic has proven to be a huge boon in allowing the society to use all means of modern communication to expedite training, education, and analysis. So, what is the Nagoya Memetic? Well, it is in fact a cantrip which, when properly prepared, may safely protect virtually any recorded form of communication from unwanted interest. As the name would suggest, it was first developed in Japan by the ancient Ainu and rediscovered near the city of Nagoya at the turn of the 19th century. Whilst other processes, cantrips, chemical preparations, certain amnestics, have existed throughout the centuries, the Nagoya Memetic is, by our reckoning, the safest and most ethical means of applying the desired effect. Owing in part to the Al-Hazred incident, EV-098, the use of this kind of cantrip is almost unheard of in the modern era. It is difficult to teach, far more difficult to perform, but incredibly potent. Once enacted, the effect of the cantrip is to engender that most powerful, and indeed at times most dangerous, of feelings: doubt. To put this rather complex process in as basic a language as I can, the Nagoya Memetic works by convincing anyone not exposed to the aforementioned words to believe that the information they are hearing, reading, or directly observing on recorded media is simply untrue. It is, to the affected individual, a bold-faced lie at best, and an attempt at entertaining fiction at worst. By applying the Nagoya Memetic to our radio broadcast, for instance, any individuals not properly worded will assume that they are merely being exposed to a piece of fiction, designed to entertain rather than an actual informational broadcast. The listener may, of course, find the entertainment to their liking, or alternatively, and decidedly not so. But she will never believe that what she is listening to is the actual truth. Let me take a less esoteric matter as an example, a matter with which most individuals hearing this, even those who will never even touch upon matters dealt with by the society, will have at least passing familiarity. This will do. Consider the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun. Most people will have heard of King Tut and his discovery by Howard Carter, even if they have no idea who Carter is and can't pick out Tut from a lineup filled with Setis, Ramseses, and the occasional Neferenka. Let us create a deliberate fiction for the purpose of our little thought experiment. Let us assume that the curse of King Tutankhamun, a complete fiction in every sense, is actually true. Very true, in fact. So true that if we imagine an alternative reality in which the curse is a real thing, and as such, knowledge of this must be kept from the avaricious and the sensitive. It would be the responsibility of the society to begin by taking extensive film of the excavation, to create copious notes, to write up unbiased academic reports regarding the discovery, along with its mundane and anomalous properties. Assuming this information was quite dangerous, the society would then be duty-bound to distribute that information as widely as possible to allies and members of the society so that proper measures could be taken. But oh, this is not such a simple task, even in 1912. The discovery of Tutankhamun is one of the most, if not the most, significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. One that eclipsed even the discovery of Troy by Schliemann in the previous century by a very fair margin, not least because news spread widely, assisted by oceanic cables, news wires, and primitive wireless broadcasts. One cannot simply hide such a discovery, no matter what the Foundation says. One must accept that the public will learn of it, speak of it, become fixated upon it. The Nagoya Memetic is the answer. By taking the initiative, the society can shape the narrative. It can apply the Nagoya mimetic to the film, to the photos, to the reports, to the recorded lectures. Those exposed to the proper words would see that material for what it was, and then do what they could to ensure the best defense for our humanity against the evils that could be unleashed. Those unprepared, however, would view such things as little more than yellow journalism. No such thing as a curse, they would scoff. Sensationalized, misunderstood Egyptian mythology at the best. In effect, only those who had been prepared for immunity to the Nagoya mimetic would recognize the dangers, and to everyone else, the curse would be, to the common mind, what nobody with an ounce of intellect fails to understand today. A very, very good story, but ultimately a false one. Do you doubt the efficacy of such a process? Consider this. Those of you who would have any more than common knowledge of the discovery of Tut's tomb will have immediately jumped upon an error earlier in our conversation. She will have said to herself, perhaps aloud, "I'm sorry, old fellow, but the tomb was discovered in 1922. But was Tut's tomb discovered in 1922 rather than 1912? Are you sure? Wouldn't it be strange if the tomb of Tutankhamun was discovered in the same year of the Titanic tragedy? Wouldn't it be strange if the greatest discovery in Egyptology from the standpoint of public interest to date, the very root of early 20th century Egyptomania, took place 2 years before the beginning of the most brutal war in human history? Wouldn't it then? I can assure you, dear heart, that if you have been exposed to the appropriate words, you'll know the answer. If not, well, that is the utility of the Nagoya mimetic. Appended research from fellow members of the Society follows. Commentary number 1, from my good friend Dr. Larson. He says, one might ask, what if an individual exposed to the Nagoya mimetic has previously received the information as undeniably true? That is a legitimate weakness, but some effect can at least be measured. Last year, we had a volunteer who had not been prepared for the Nagoya mimetic, and was given a very simple note to the effect that his birth date was, in fact, 7th January 1971. He knew full well that this was the truth before reading the note. There was no deception here. But the note was treated with the Nagoya mimetic by our occult lead, a woman of considerable skill. The result was confusion. He became convinced that his birthday could not possibly be 7th January 1971. He had been misinformed. Perhaps someone had made a mistake on his birth certificate, he reasoned. Perhaps his parents had deliberately altered the date for reasons not known to him. He did not, to be sure, take it as some huge offense, but he did take it with a great deal of confusion. 48 hours later, we managed to convince him that the date was correct, and that he had been exposed to a harmless illusion in order to test a theory. He once again understands that the date of his birth is January 7th, 1971. But a full year on, he still remembers that period of confusion, and calls it one of the cruelest tricks that's ever been played upon him. Cruelty was, I assure you, absolutely not the intent. And from SM990, a talented intelligence analyst who works closely with the narrator. We are aware that members of certain rival organizations are listening to these broadcasts. Those pieces of information with which they are already aware will of course be unaffected by the Nagoya mimetic. However, information that is new to them will usually be perceived as fictional, or at the very least, overstated. In order to aid that obfuscation, a certain percentage of our broadcast will of course contain persons, places, and things created out of whole cloth to prevent complete acceptance of the data within the aforementioned broadcast. At the very least, this causes our rivals to exhaust time, money, and resources, pursuing empty leads, thus making our work that much easier, even for a brief period of time. And speaking of time, I am sorry to say that our time has ended for the moment. These are meant to be brief educational broadcasts overall, and perhaps I have already overstayed my welcome. I thank you all for your kind attention. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to contact the Society or the narrator. and they will ensure that I receive them. If it is possible to answer your questions in this format, and in a way that won't put half the audience to sleep, I will do so here. Thank you all.
This program has been brought to you by the Society of Virtuous Pagans. The Nagoya Memetic was created by Alex Bagassi. This broadcast was written by Alex Bagassi. Our players tonight were August Brotherton and Guinevere McGregor. Sound engineering, editing, and mixing by Creative Minds Audio. Our logo and iconography were designed by Mazface. The Helios Radio was designed by Kieran Byrne. The Society of Virtuous Pagans was created by Alex Bagassi in 2012. We appreciate you listening to our broadcast today, and we ask that you please like and subscribe to our channel. Have faith. We know.